Hello, hello. This is Irene with SaugaTalks. Hello, thank you for joining. Thank you to our loyal followers. Okay, that's a mouthful. Who joined SaugaTalks, who really into AI, in digital transformation, in automation, in enterprise AI. You know the conversation that we hear left and right. But I'm so privileged. I'm speaking with fascinating people in tech who help me to learn as we all evolve, as we all discover new tools, new approaches, but most importantly, the authentic experiences of my guests here, I really treasure. So today is my day. Melissa Reeve is with me. Melissa, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me on the show, and it is such a pleasure to be here today.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, because we said we're going to talk about messy stuff around AI. All right. Seems like if you look at all the promotions and wonderful videos, wonderful demos, okay, everybody excited, everybody have their feet wet in some way, right? Some more
Yeah.
dangerous than another, right? But could you please, with your experience as organizational leader, as AI expert and author, we're going to talk about your new book soon.
Thank you.
Could you enlighten us about how this experimentation, this kind of pilot stage of AI that we've seen a few years ago, right? And now it's moving into agentic, into autonomous AI. What organizations feel, what leaders are talking about, where are we right now, Melissa?
It's funny. I was on a think tank conversation earlier today, and there's individual conversations happening, but there's this meta trend that is really emerging. And the meta trend is that almost everything is going from a fixed state into either a flow state or an adaptive state. And it's the difference between a light switch being on or off and continually responding. And it's interesting how no matter what we're talking about, organizational structures going from fixed to flow, whether it's governance going from fixed to adaptive, whether it's leadership going from fixed to adaptive, it seems to be this meta trend that's superseding and tying together all these separate conversations.
Amazing. So what are the conversations that's happening right now? Let's say senior leadership, right? They have the budget, they have mission critical applications and part of the business they have to support. And yet I know everybody have their own AI strategy now. So
Yeah.
point is how to make it more grounded instead of just, talking about flashy, wonderful stuff. But
Hmm.
what's happening right now that people have to make decisions, budget decisions, resources, and
Yeah.
what's most important, they have to have outcomes. Otherwise, it just talk.
Yeah, I mean, so many organizations are still spinning, and they know they need to get into this adaptive, or what I call a hyperadaptive future, an organization that can sense and respond in near real time with the help of AI, but they're running headfirst into their organizational structures. And they've got what I call this bifurcation problem happening, which is they've got a handful of power users who are leaning in heavily to AI, and then they've got the rest of the organization. The power users are typically 15%, maybe 10 to 15% of the organization. And then you have the bulk of the people in the middle who are lightly adopting AI in different ways. And then at the bottom of the organization, there might be a few holdouts who are actively resisting AI. The middle is stuck because they oftentimes don't have the capacity to really lean into AI. And those power users are following their curiosity oftentimes on the nights and the weekends. And so at the leadership level, they're really trying to crack this nut and figure out, how do we get the whole organization leaning into AI?
Oh wow, that's not an easy task, okay? And we use the word messy in our title today because I want to hear how old structures and these roles and many organizations are still very hierarchical
Yeah.
despite all the matrix kind of horizontal move. But this is all happening and they have to support mission critical, right, business. So point is, how do you see most organizations handle that messy part?
Yeah.
Besides, of course, yeah.
And it's the messy middle in a couple of ways. One is it's the messy middle between the old and the new. And so that's what you were articulating just now is we've got the old ways of doing things, and they're often very manual. They often cross multiple organizational boundaries. And then in the future, we anticipate things will be much more fluid. So in the book, I describe organizations as they are now as linear organizations. So you have strategy to execution, you have concept to delivery, and in the organization of the future, the organizational structure that I propose it's multi-layered, but one of the layers is value stream oriented. And value streams, if your listeners may or may not be familiar with them, I like to articulate them in the context of a bank because most people have an experience with a bank. And it's a concept that comes from lean manufacturing, and you start to organize around concept to delivery to the customer. So if you take that bank example and you're thinking about the segments that a bank services, you might have a service line that's really focused on new graduates and their banking needs. You might have a service line that's focused on high net worth individuals. You might have a service line that's really dedicated to people who have mortgage needs or specific mortgage needs. And you start to organize the people who deliver that. Everybody who delivers on that mortgages, it's marketing people, it's legal people, it's your finance people, it's your technology people, all organized in that value stream. But when you think about that shift from linear to a value stream oriented organization, it's messy. And so what we start to do in the book is we start to articulate how do you incrementally and iteratively start rewiring your people, your processes, your roles to make that shift, and what support structures do you need to spin up in order to make that transition? Because we know it's not going to happen overnight. But that's why so many organizations are stuck right now, because it is a massive change that needs to happen, and they're expecting it to happen organically.
And I read this is a mistake because organic only can take you right as far. So point is, how do you navigate, how you build the road that that's clear, because you have to buy in, right, of all the participants, right? You
That's
mentioned power users, you mentioned people who really resist and they're going to continue resist, right? And people in the middle. So how do you get that buy-in that not only showing rah-rah, beautiful future, right? But it's people's everyday life and their careers, right? How do you line them to meet that goal?
That's right. In the book, I use the metaphor. It's a sailing metaphor that sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. When you're sailing, you don't go headlong into the wind. You offset from the wind so that you can get acceleration. And the reason why that's so important is because so many organizations are just trying to go headlong into the wind. Let's move as fast as we can into this AI. But I argue that a more deliberate approach where you slow down, and by slow down, I'm not talking crawling here, folks. I'm talking about just taking a breath and taking deliberate action so that you can move together. And I'll give you a sense of this. In the hyperadaptive model, we have 5 stages. And in the beginning, we have a foundational stage. I feel like many organizations have organically figured this out. We need some AI councils. We need some AI leads. The question I'd ask you is, are you programmatically supporting your AI leads, or are you just taking those AI leads that have volunteered and your power users and saying, go have fun, go spread the good news and multiply, and expect them to understand what it takes to change hearts and minds, expect them to understand what it means to lead through influence rather than authority, to expect them to know how to change the hearts and minds of the resistors? Like we really need to take a much more programmatic approach to what we're doing organically. And then in the next stage, we start to fire up some support infrastructure. In the book, I call it AI activation hubs. And I want you to think of a group of people who's dedicated to supporting and implementing AI in their section of the business. And it's fractal, right? So if you're a small organization, you might have one of these activation hubs. But if you're a large organization like IBM or these multinationals, you're going to need a whole network of these. And this is another concept I've drawn from Lean called Yoko 10. And it's this lightweight horizontal coordination layer where you're not only activating your part of the organization, but you're spreading best practices across the organization. So when I talk about being deliberate, these are some of the types of deliberate actions that organizations can take to really start bringing the people along in a much more systematic way from where they are today into this much more AI native space of the future.
Let me ask you this, how AI transformation is different from all the other technology initiatives that we all seen happening in front of our eyes, right? Beginning with internet, then big data, then cloud, then we talked about blockchain, we talked about lots of things, right? Now AI came and seems like many organizations saying, hey, I've just apply the known method that I am doing, right? At least that's what I've seen, all right? So please enlighten us in terms of, is AI transformation just another wave we have to adapt and we have to embrace, or there's a particularities that organizations will have to, make changes about?
Well, and I think it's both and. So when you look at the book, you'll see that it's rooted in some of the names that anybody who's familiar with organizational change it knows, John Kotter in Leading Change, and Clayton Christensen in Disruptive Innovation, and Peter Senge in a learning organization. But they've been extended for the speed and complexity that AI demands. So AI doesn't stand still. Even when you think about things like cloud, that happened over many, many years, and the technology wasn't evolving every 6 weeks. And so what we need to do is we need to take the essence of some of those models and then tweak them. So in the old days, you could say, I'm going to use a mountain metaphor here. We've got a mountain, and at the top of the mountain is cloud transformation. And we generally know what the stages are, the base camps along the mountain, what they look like, and we can articulate them. With AI, we've got changing conditions. So what we need is, instead of really knowing what the path looks like, we need these huts on the side of the mountain that can provide real-time communication of what's going on in the mountain at that point in time. So these AI activation hubs that I've articulated are like your huts in the mountain. So let's say that Claude Fable just dropped. Oh, it just dropped, and then it didn't drop, and now it just dropped again today. Your AI activation hub is your real-time hut on the mountain saying, here's the latest information. We're going to send it out to our AI leads, who can then get it into the hands of the frontline practitioners in near real time in order to create what I call this AI learning flywheel. And so that's the same as it was before, but it's also a shift to address the speed and complexity and create an organization that can really keep up with models that change every 6 weeks or less.
Beautiful. So let's point. This is a good time in the show to point to the book. I have it in front of me right now. It's Hyperadaptive Rewiring to Become an AI Native Organization by Melissa Reeve. Melissa, where people can get access to the book, and what's the best way?
Yeah, so it's available anywhere you would normally get a book. So booksellers around the world, Amazon is a great place, Barnes & Noble, other retailers. I have heard for those people in Europe, they're having a hard time getting the hard copy. We're working on addressing that, but you can get the Kindle copy immediately.
Fantastic. We'll put the link, at least Amazon link, right, in the description of this video. So thank you for this. Let me ask you this, all right? So what leaders must actually do right now? because, many of them are still in the face of random acts of AI. As much as everybody wants to be systematic and programmatic, we know how that happens, okay? Little projects, little new tools they want to try, and it becomes really random acts. So is there any advice to give at this point in terms of, how to avoid those, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's several. One is establish what I call your AI North Star. Why are you implementing AI and what are you trying to achieve with it? It's not just put like I think about the 1990s and putting a PC on everybody's desk. Like, it's not like that. You should think about these big, hairy, audacious goals that you want to do as an organization and ground the organization in doing that. That will create an umbrella of psychological safety under which everybody can operate. The second thing I do is, yes, appoint somebody to own this, but understand it isn't one person's job. It isn't one function's job. So stop trying to abdicate it to a single person. You want to create layers of ownership and layers of activation. The third thing is, this doesn't install itself. And so start funding the structures you need to support the installation. And I see so many leaders just focused on funding the technology without funding the systems they need to actually activate it.
Right. Could you possibly share, some organizations, some examples that, again, we don't need client names, we don't need any of the details, but sort of, success stories in a way when people did think it through, right? And when they're successful, because it's not enough just to have a good intention, as we know.
That's right. Yeah, in the book, some of the feedback I've gotten is people are just loving the case studies that I've pulled forward. A very popular one, but one that is popular for a reason, is Moderna. So they set their AI North Star is to get 15 new drugs in 5 years out the door. It typically takes a pharmaceutical company 10 years, $2 billion to get one drug out the door. So this is a huge goal. Secondarily to that, they wanted to activate AI throughout their organization. So they had a contest, and this was a couple of years ago when prompting was such a big thing, but they had a contest to identify their 100 most powerful prompting people. Now, those people became their AI champions, and then they created a program to support those champions. Alongside that, they created an online forum where people could exchange best practices. So that's one example of a company that really took a systemic view to AI and is reaping the successes because of it.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm sure you've seen some disasters happening, okay? We're not gonna point fingers, we're all learning. And again, everybody come to work every day to make the best, right? The best of possible outcomes. At the same time, any scenarios where things did not go as well as planned, and maybe some lessons we can,
I mean, I think everything we've been talking about, so I won't name names, but I think just as broad strokes, this bifurcation of the power users and everybody else, that's an anti-pattern. I think the not systematically supporting the people who are your AI leads, I think that's another anti-pattern. I think a third anti-pattern is what I call static governance. So people don't know what they can do, what they can't do, and they're treating AI governance like they've treated every other governance, which is, let's form a committee, let's put the committee results out on the internet, and then let's test our people and see if they understand the guardrails. AI moves way too fast for that. And again, we need to put what I call dynamic governance in place so that people, like, just imagine you're on the front line and you're wanting to do something with AI. And you can just ask a GPT, here's what I'm planning on doing. 1, has anybody else done this? 2, what are the governance guardrails? Is it a red light? Don't do that at all. Is it a yellow light? Like, you can use this data, just strip out the PII or anonymize it. Or is it a green light? You're good to go. In that real-time feedback loop, again, is this type of approach that we need to be taking to move from full circle here, from fixed to flow or adaptive.
Any advice on how to navigate the ups and downs of that journey? Okay, because one thing we learn, this is not a short-term project, right? This is a new reality that, like it or not, every organization is facing, even if they're avoiding it altogether, right? We know how that goes. So point is how to really navigate those ups and downs in terms of, again, you mentioned technology evolving like every 5 minutes, all right? People mind is changing, right? Other priorities come to the point, right? That AI project can be pushed a little bit to the side, right? Because still it's not a mission critical inside some organization, right? So what's the kind of good mindset to have if you're leading the project that's, again, right? There's investment behind it, there's people in, and you have the goal in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think taking a long-term mindset, understanding that we are going to be in this state of continuing adaptation for the foreseeable future. So this isn't a one-time installation of AI. This is putting the structures in place that can maintain AI over time. Just like when we put the PC on the desk in the 1990s, we spun up IT help desk. We spun up entire IT departments, and we didn't just put it on everybody's desk and say, go play with it and be done. So I think having that mindset is first critical. And then second, using AI to help overcome some of those challenges in a much more nuanced way. So what if you had a conversational chatbot that where people could verbally download their sentiment, what they're thinking, what their challenges are, and then you use AI to collect all that information to truly understand where your organization's getting stuck, truly understand the reality of different people at different levels so that you can effectively problem solve where those challenges pop up.
Understand. So again, looking at your book, right, you're advising how to rewire more traditional organizations to become an AI native, right?
That's
It's
right.
right. Those who are an AI native, they don't call them that, right? They know exactly when they were born, pretty much, right? And what the processes and what the model they have. They don't even ask those questions, right?
That's right.
So what's the kind of good helping hand we were talking about all along, right? Helping hand in terms of having the structure, but what most importantly, that some organizations will never be AI native. How about that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't think the goal is to necessarily become AI native in the same way that a company that was born 2 years ago or even 5 years ago could be. But I think we've known, many of us have known, that the operating model of the past has been challenging for a while now. We've been trying to break down silos for many decades. And we know that Taylorism hasn't necessarily mapped to the way that we're working today. And so my point of view is that, one, you can't expect 21st century results with a 20th century operating model. And two, AI finally provides the opening and the need, the challenge for these large organizations to really rethink their operating models in a much more fluid way.
For sure. What do you see happening in terms of, I hear a lot about how AI democratizing everything, right? So you don't have to have a PhD to perform the best of your best ability, right? There's so many things you can do. You still need your expertise, by the way. Let's not get really lightheaded here, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, what do you see happening? Is it really a great motivator for people out there, or still I hear many people resist, many people don't trust, many people have lots of challenges in the way.
Yeah, there was a great article. It was written by Jason Everbook, and he's in the HR space. And he talked about when the elevator was first, when Otis was first developing the elevator. And he actually had to imagine an elevator that doesn't have any walls. It's just a platform to demonstrate the safety chain that he had developed to keep the elevator from crashing to the ground. Because at that point in time, when he was developing it, I think it was in the 1850s, people did not trust elevators. And so I think we're at a similar point in time where we're earning trust. AI is earning the trust of the people. There will be displacement. And so we do have to crack that nut of who owns the displacement and who's going to be responsible for the upskilling and reskilling. That fear, I think, is real. And the opportunity is real. Like you said, for everybody to start spreading into adjacent competencies and for people to discover new talents and new things that they can do with their skills and their imagination.
I imagine, again, my background in very traditional, in very enterprise, I would say heavy enterprise world, all right? Seeing new companies growing, their successes, I think it inspires everyone, right? And yet not everyone will be Amazon. How about that? Let's just be realistic, all right? So what you see out there, can we talk a little bit about how to be part of the enterprise? Because it's a big driver in the economy, right? But at the same time, don't feel like you are locked down somewhere. Okay, that's you're not where all the actions are.
Yeah.
That kind of thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're pointing to is remember your agency, right? Remember that things aren't necessarily happening to you. That, even when I say things like who's going to own the displacement, is it the government? Is it enterprises? Is it higher education? Is it the individual? Like, we as individuals make up the enterprise. We vote for representatives in our government. We have a voice in our educational systems. And so I would just really encourage everybody to, one, get educated. Like, even if you're resisting it, and my guess is if people are listening to this podcast, they may not be resisting it, but they might have people who resist it in their lives. And just open up hearts and minds. Like, one fun stat is data centers use 1% of the water that the golf courses in this country use. And so, yes, there's issues around water. And what do we do about the golf courses? So let's get educated around separating hype from reality. And then let's lean into the areas that are important to us in a nuanced and informed way.
Thank you. That sounds like a good thought to have, because we have to remind ourselves even daily, all right? Because when we step out our comfort zone, and that happens very often nowadays. So yeah, just keep in mind, and again, be ourselves, So Melissa, to close the conversation, thank you for your time very much. We're going to point to the book. There's tons of what we have not talked about, right? That's in the book. Maybe we can finish with a few key takeaways, okay,
Sure.
from conversation we had.
Yeah, so I think the key takeaways are, one, this notion of fixed versus flow. And when you think about that, or fixed versus adaptive, think about your part of the organization. Think, whether it's governance or marketing or finance, I'm thinking about even budgeting from a yearly cycle into a more flow-based or adaptive. Think about your area of the organization. Think about one way that you can start moving to a more flow or adaptive-based stance. Secondly, think about how you can design the systems to activate people in an ongoing way. I think third is, think about how do you run some pilots to pilot the systems in order to get the organization operating in a different way. Experiment. I feel like we've said that for a long time now. Experiment, experiment, experiment. Here's another opportunity for people to start playing. And if you're expecting people to experiment, please, please, please remember that requires capacity, and create the capacity for people to do that.
Totally appreciate it. We're going to continue experimenting right after the talk. This is the time, this is the place. Melissa, thank you so very much for joining. Thank you, and appreciate
Thanks so much for having me on the show. It's been a great conversation.